you want some Europa League final stat attack? Well, tough, you're getting it anyway. 16th straight time a Spanish team has defeated a non-Spanish side in a European final since 2001. Make an excited noise, Stephen.
Ooh.
David De Gea failed to save his last 40 penalties faced for club and country.
Not surprised.
Oh, that's not bad. Unai Emery's 4th Europa League title, that's the most of all time. And Manchester United now 4 straight seasons without silverware. Craig was pulling no punches yesterday in his criticism of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
You have a man who should not, and I've been saying it for a couple of years now, a man who should not be managing Manchester United. He's a serial loser. He's a serial loser. He's now lost a final. He's been pumped out of 4 semi-finals at least. They were out of all the domestic competitions. To me, that's just absolute proof, if needed, and it's not needed for me, that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is only managing this club, Dan, because he was a former player. This is Man United. This is a side that are getting their backside whopped by Liverpool and Man City. This is a side that can't even win the Europa League now. This is a side that are not dining at the big table in European football, and yet they continue to say, we're going in the right direction. We have the right man in charge. Who really believes that? Who really believes they have the right man in charge? When it comes to the crunch and all the big games that Solskjaer's managed at this club, they have lost. That's not fantasy analysis, that's fact. But it's down to the fact they do not have a manager who's going to cut the mustard for this football club going forward. And I'm fed up telling people that, but I'm telling you, until I go to my grave, I'm right about this one.
Let's welcome in, shall we, Shaka and Nedum to the show. Nedum, is Craig right?
Well, he feels very strongly about it, and it seems like he's prepared to die on that hill. And to be honest, for me, I don't think Solskjaer is the worst manager in the world. I think, obviously, looking at this spell now at United, they haven't won anything, so questions will be asked. And I think overall in that final yesterday, it felt as if at times he was outcoached by Emery, but I don't know, it's not all doom and gloom, I don't believe, because you could look at, say, someone like Pochettino, who's maybe coming back to Spurs now, and you know, he's won a league, he's won the equivalent of the FA Cup with Paris Saint-Germain, and he's not won a league title, but he's still seen as somebody who can bring success to a team. So I'm not sure. I think United have been very disappointing in this last month or so, but until this point, you know, they had a good head of steam. But like I say, Craig is more than prepared to die on that hill, and you know, ultimately, I'm not with him 100%, but I can see why questions are being asked, because there are a lot of Man United supporters who really aren't happy with how things are going.
Stevie?
I am completely confused with the rhetoric that Ole comes out with. And I've got to tell you, I actually fell into it. Every time I heard, well, we're getting better, we're getting better, we're getting better. For the last 2 years, last 2 full seasons, we're getting better. And the fact that they were sitting second in the Premier League, you kind of went, OK, maybe he's right. But then when you start digging deeper, he's not right at all. They're probably second because of all the problems that all the others are having. And if he's saying they're better than what? Because if you look at all the stats, look at all the games, look at all the wins, look at all the losses, he's behind Mourinho. So what's gotten better?
Everyone's happier now. People are happier.
And by the way, Mourinho had a Europa League and a League Cup. So he had 2 pieces of silverware. And of course, if you ask Josie, he'll say the Community Shield. So there's 3. And Ole's had 0, and he's lost all these semis and now a final. So please, somebody explain what's better. So why is Ole the man for this job? He's clearly not.
What's better, Nedum?
To be honest, if we talk about it in terms of the title this year, I think given the fact that they had 3 games in 5 days and it seemed like City had won the title already, I think to look at their points finish for the season isn't necessarily showing the bigger picture. I think that obviously they did do better. They do have things going in their way in the fact that, you know, they didn't lose a single game away from home all season. But City are far and away the best team this year. And I think for United, you know, being second is never good enough, especially when it's to your rivals. But the fact of the matter is, maybe they are getting better, but they're not the Man United we expect. Because going into that game yesterday, we thought United would win that game, but they got there and they underperformed. So obviously questions will need to be asked of the manager and of the players. And, they'll be disappointed themselves because they should have won that in the same way that they should have won key games at home against Sheffield United earlier in the season and stuff like this. The time when they should have won in the Champions League to keep them in the Champions League. And ultimately you have to get to the bottom of why that is happening. And if it's a case of, it's going to be accountability from the top, then you would have to say Solskjaer's not the right man for it. But then in the same breath, there are little positives, but ultimately they don't matter when in the grand scheme of things, you're still as far behind teams like Man City as you are right now.
Jack?
Well, there's a couple of things to address here. First, I don't think the comparison between Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Pochettino is a fair one. The expectation as manager of Manchester United and manager of Spurs are completely different. Jose Mourinho, as Stevie rightly pointed out, won the Europa League with Manchester United, wasn't able to do that with Spurs. That being said, talking about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and more to the point, what Craig's criticism of him, I think it's totally fair. And going back to yesterday's show, I thought something Frank said was really interesting. Finals are games that you win. It's not about how you play, it's not about what you do. You have to have that mentality about winning. And Manchester United have failed to do that consistently under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Yes, you can boast that you finished second in the league. Yes, you can boast that you've gone undefeated in the league this campaign. But in the league, you also beat and draw with Manchester City, but lose to them in a cup semi-final. In the Champions League, you beat Leipzig at home 5-0. And then you go away needing, a point to qualify for the group stage, and you lose that game. You go into a Europa League final against a team sitting, where were Villarreal? Fifth in La Liga?
Seventh in La
Liga. Let's remember, Atletico won that league and looked tame at best against Chelsea, who finished fourth in the Premier League. But you go against Villarreal and you lose that as well, albeit on penalties. But it's a poor Villarreal team. And while you might want to cling to, well, we were undefeated at home, well, we lost to City, and City are so good, and you may want to say you're progressing, but under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, you'll be kind of looking for that progression, but you won't lift any silverware. That I am now certain of.
Nedum?
Yeah, I was going to say, some of the perspectives in which we talk about them going unbeaten away from home and so on and so forth, I think that more matters for people from the outside. I think when they look on the inside, the players on the staff will know that it's not been good enough. To go on that run is great and whatever, but it means nothing if you don't win a title. Going into that game yesterday, they had to, this a big occasion, they have to win. But it wasn't a case of if they won, everything would be great. Because the fact of the matter is, it's Manchester United in the Europa League after falling out of the Champions League. So for them to sort of let themselves down and so on, the players themselves, I don't think they'll be looking around today thinking of the positives. I think they'll be definitely disappointed because ultimately, I think for the squad that they have and so on, I think they'll know that they've underperformed. So like I say, it's not a case of the players essentially and most of the staff saying everything's okay. Because I think deep down they know that it's not. They've got players there, for example, in a Paul Pogba who's won a World Cup. So to lose in Europa League final, he's thinking to himself, well, probably what is this? Where are we? And what's going on? And it's disappointing. But then we also have to give credit to Villarreal. We talk about where they finished in La Liga and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is they made it to the final of European competition. So it was always going to be a tough game. And even though United were favourites, it shouldn't have been a case that they were going to romp them. So in my opinion, the positives that we do speak of, it's more so a sense of balance from the outside. But inside, they'll be greatly disappointed by this year and they won't be celebrating the fact that they were second. I think they'll be more so disappointed in the fact that they finished second after being first in January.
Craig's talking about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer not being ready for this job. Do you think Alex Ferguson would be standing, telling the press, game after game, defeat after defeat, bad result after bad result, that we're getting better? Not a chance. He's talking about after this game that we didn't turn up, and then in the second half we didn't take control. Alex Ferguson would have ripped half of their heads off in the dressing room to make sure that they took control, to make sure that maybe they hadn't turned up in the first half, but they would have turned up in the second half. I'm sorry. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the last guy I'm going to be scared of walking in a dressing room after a poor performance.
On that point, Nedum, Antonio Conte is available, of course, after leaving Inter. This is a proven winner. You know what you're going to get from him. Yeah. If you're Manchester United, what are you seeing from Solskjaer? What have you seen that you need to stick with him and not bring in someone of the pedigree of Conte?
You know, it's, as Craig was alluding to, I think the fact that he is a legend at the club, I think that is buying him time, especially at this moment in time when fans are protesting against the ownership and so on. And obviously fans are disappointed, but I don't know how many will be saying, you know, Solskjaer has to go, because they're still kind of clinging in some ways to an identity that exists within him. So yes, they could remove him and you could bring in Conte, you know, it might get the fans excited and so on, but into someone like Conte, you know, he would transform a club. And is that what Manchester United want to see? And again, like, the toughest thing about being a Manchester United player and Manchester United fan right now is you will always compare yourself to the glory days under Sir Alex Ferguson. Any manager who comes in, like, can he give their hairdryer treatment to the same way? Can he galvanise the team in the same way? And ultimately, most of those managers are elsewhere. And even some of those managers themselves, they don't have the same characteristics as a Sir Alex Ferguson does. But that's when most United fans felt the fondest about their football club. So, you know, for them, if they can afford to sack Solskjaer now, I'm not sure given the protests. But, you know, when you find some of these big name managers on the market, it would be naive to not at least look at them. And, you know, maybe this is going to be the summer for United, but maybe there'll be some unrest if that is the case.
We know fans are fickle, Shaka. If Conte comes in and wins a couple of games, Solskjaer is long forgotten. The more and more you analyse what's going on, surely it is the time to take that risk, isn't it?
Well, if you're looking at this from a footballing perspective, if you're looking at this from in terms of the football, it's you know, this is a no-brainer.
That's the only perspective that matters, isn't it?
Well, that's the only perspective that matters to you and me, us in the studio, and maybe to fans. My issue with this, or my issue with Manchester United, and maybe some reluctance to pull the trigger, is who's in charge of that club. The Glazers, as we've spoken about a lot over recent weeks, are more interested in the bottom line of that football club. We had Mark Ogden on talking about there's been absolutely no investment in the infrastructure, in the stadium. In Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, you have somebody who's not going to rock the boat too much, who's not going to come out and say and be critical of you in the press, whatever you do, who's going to sing from the club team hymn sheet. And as far as owners who are only interested in the bottom line are concerned, that is absolutely perfect. As far as the Glazers are concerned, probably the last thing they need is somebody with a proven track record coming in and criticizing every decision they make. They don't want that. So, which is why I say, if we're still here talking about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer come September, you know exactly why.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.